Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Township of Georgian Bay, Tuesday morning, May 5th, 2026. And I'd like to call the Planning Council meeting to get in order at 9 a.m. And in the spirit of reconciliation, we wish to acknowledge the enduring relationships between Indigenous peoples and the territories that they have traditionally occupied. We recognize and deeply respect the connection, the historic connection they have to this place, the land, the water, the sky, and all that live in, on, and above it. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of Indigenous peoples who have taken care of this land and who continue to care for it. And we want to show our respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they remain relevant today. May they guide our decisions and our actions. We commit to learn, to educate, to honor sacred places, and to take action towards real truth and reconciliation. Miigwech. In addition, we want to acknowledge the commitment of the residents of the Georgian Bay Township. We recognize that this municipality operates because of the financial support and volunteerism of a diverse community, including seasonal and full-time residents, volunteers, and businesses who sustain our services, infrastructure, staff, and local democracy. We all share a common interest in having a transparent, fiscally responsible, well-governed municipality. Council, the corporation, including its municipal staff, commit to serving with accountability, fiscal responsibility, environmental stewardship, and to create a service-oriented culture that focuses on helping and acting in the best interests of the community. Thank you. Council, any declarations of pecuniary interest, conflict of interest, or anything else you believe we should know in advance of the meeting? And as always, if something does come up, please let us know. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody registered for open forum? He says naively, asks naively.
Yes, we have several people who've registered. I do ask if you are remote and would like to speak, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we'd just like to start with those in attendance in the room.
Would anybody in attendance like to speak to open forum? Please come forward. The rule is you identify yourself, who you are, and then you have 2 minutes to say your bit. And then once I see other people are rising, we'll just take turns. So we'll let the first couple go, then we'll let the second couple go. Is the third couple speaking to this? Then we won't let you go. Oh, and we'll have one online as well following the in-persons. So yeah, and there's a little silver button, and if you.
Well, good morning, Mayor and members of council. My name is Greg McKibbon. This is my wife Ellie beside me. We're the owners of 9362 Go Home Lakeshore, a beautiful cottage property that encompasses a sandy cove beach with many feet of rock on both the sides of the property and the rear of the property, creating a natural rock boundary. We purchased and closed the property in early 2017 and immediately started the process to purchase our Shore Road allowance. During this time, we've had objections from our neighbors at 9344 Go Home Lakeshore. In our attempts to resolve this, we have made survey revisions that have been fair and equitable to both parties, having still met the township requirements as per the policy and procedures. We have compromised by giving up a desirable portion of our Shore Road allowance to accommodate our neighbor's dock, which is, to our understanding, has no permit, resides on our side of the Shore Road allowance, which we have paid taxes on for the past 9 years. We have given up something to try to resolve this situation with our neighbors. They have not given up anything to try to work with us. It has been nearly a decade. We have paid a great deal of money trying to resolve the Shore Road Allowance issue. We have paid for 3 surveys, consultant, and lawyer fees, and our property is in dire need of repair. Our dock has deteriorated and is no longer safe. It has been such a frustrating and disappointing experience for us and our kids. Our neighbors at 9344 Go Home Lakeshore get to enjoy their beautiful cottage and dock. We do not have a cottage and dock that is usable. We have not been able to enjoy the nature and rugged beauty of Go Home. Instead, we are held hostage as we can only make hourly visits to our property due to the lack of functioning amenities. So we ask Council today to please close our Shore Road Allowance so that we may proceed to purchase it. This will allow us to move forward to get the necessary permits so we too can start enjoying cottage life. Thank you for listening to our concerns.
Thank you very much. We have to get the microphone.
Silver button.
There.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. My name is Lois Payne, and this is my partner, Terry Hearn, and we're the owners of Lot 388. Now, we do have legal counsel present this morning, and it was our intention in our presentation to have him speak first. So I'm hoping that he's here, and Mark Kemmerer is the name.
Yeah, he is here, but he did not raise his hand online to speak.
Oh, he may not have heard you say that. He does want to speak.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I will. Okay, I'm going to assume he's having technical issues because he just.
I am here.
There you go.
There
Okay,
he
great.
is.
You've got him. Okay.
Sorry, I did actually raise my hand, but I think I wasn't on screen, so that may be why you didn't see it. All right, thank you very much, Mayor Coaster and members of the Planning Council. I am here on behalf of Ms. Payne and Mr. Hearn, and I realize I have a very short time to speak, so I will try to get through this as clearly and concisely as possible. I may have to have the indulgence of 1 extra minute, but I will, again, try to do this as clearly and concisely as possible. So you should have before you my letter to the Planning Committee of April 30th, 2026. That contained as an attachment my former letter to you of September 2021, because this is a matter that has been going on for some period of time. I want to break this into 4 themes. One, I'll start with a background, the legal context. Then I'll move on to the idea of equity. Then I'll address a staff report and some of the comments Mr. McKibbon made, and then I'll finally conclude with the implications of your decisions. So thank you again for allowing me to speak. To begin with, in terms of the legal context, it is critical that, of course, council, as you well know and you're well aware of, that you adhere to the legal framework for the stopping up and closing of road allowances in the township. And that is governed, as you may well know, by Township Bylaw 2008-12, and that relies on Schedule A attached thereto. And what's particularly important there is Section 1.7, which states, and I'm sort of paraphrasing here, that where there's a dispute between properties over the boundary of the subject road allowance, council will, and that's not permissive, it's not may, it's will, defer consideration of the matter. And of course, this came before you in 2021 and was deferred for the same purpose. And I can tell you, since I have been involved in this, that we did try to engage the neighbors you just heard from, and we're not successful in that, unfortunately. But my clients remain committed to having a productive conversation with them to resolve this. Now, as you well know, there was an update to the policy in 2022, which is policy 2022-015-CL. It's a policy document which does not, it's important to note, replace the bylaw. So the bylaw continues to prevail. However, it contains similar provision, and that is Section 12 states that applicants are encouraged to establish an extension of lot lines by mutual agreement with abutting property owners, and the council will consider deviations from straight extension of existing lines in some circumstances, as is the case here. And you'll hear this again. So, for example, Section 18 also states that due to the irregular nature of the shoreline, deviations may be considered by this council. And this is particularly where the lot lines, as in the case here, are not perpendicular. And then Section 32 of that policy states that no portion of township land will be closed or conveyed if it is deemed to have a negative impact on neighboring owners of the land. So it's critical, and you've heard this in the staff report, you've heard this, in fact, from the McKibbons, you'll hear it from us, that that there's a well-established principle that the land, in order to be closed or conveyed, must be distributed among competing owners on a fair and equitable basis. And that comes from Section 18 of Policy 2022. And here it's my submission to you, Planning Council, that the equitable solution is to accept my client's application, the 2019 application, and that the McKibbon application be similarly revised to reflect, in fact, what was their original application, a 2017 application based on a survey they themselves commissioned, and that's contained at tab 1 of my September 2021 letter. The alternative, based on the legal framework council must, in my submission, adhere to, is to refuse both applications. But we come here before you saying there is a compromise here. In terms of equity and fairness and what's properly considered is to approve both applications, but to approve them based on the 29 application, which will provide the McKibbons and Moores with a shoreline road allowance. So in terms of equity, as I've noted, the 2017 survey was commissioned by the Moore McKibbons on their own initiative. It was done by an experienced surveyor in the township, Rakes, with a good understanding of township requirements. Importantly, it takes into consideration the factors surveyors look for in following township policy in devising the boundary lines, including the topographical footprints or features, such as the rock formations on this property, and you'll have seen that from the photos in the applications and in the staff report.
You're well over your 2 minutes, so if
right.
you can summarize as quickly as possible, please.
So I will summarize by saying that if you look at the photos of the property, that they show that the my client's application meets all of the staff and standard procedures here, which is to incorporate the rocks on their property, the occupational use of the property from you'll see, and also which will protect their drainage, which goes over those rocks. So in terms of equity, it's important to approve my client's application. I note that in terms of the staff report, it didn't properly consider my client's application. The original staff report in April of this year didn't even mention, particularly even bring that forward for approval. So it's my request to you today, Planning Council, that based on equity, based on the legal framework, that you approve my client's application and amend the Moore McKibbon application. They could have all along built a cottage and enjoyed a dock on this property, but that is the equitable approach here. And I thank you for that. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, we're going to now go, you get your 2 minutes if you want 2 minutes to say anything else. And then this will be coming up in front of us a little bit later for, I'll call it active discussion amongst the councilors and staff.
All right, thank you very much. On the merits of our application, we submit first and foremost that our proposal would have no negative impact on neighboring properties. Our proposal includes the area that receives the bulk of the drainage from our lot, both overland and subsurface. The photographs show the existing underground piping, and they also illustrate that our lot is at a higher elevation than Lot 80 and slopes down towards Lot 80 and the lake. Our proposal follows the existing topography and reflects the grade of the bedrock. By contrast, approval of the Lot 80 proposal would sever the established drainage pattern and require drainage easements and an engineered solution. Further, as demonstrated in the photographs, the Lot 388 proposal, our proposal, creates a shoreline division based on property corners, as set out in the township policy. The Lot 80 proposal would instead cut across our front yard and create a skewed property boundary. The Lot 80 proposal is based on an arbitrary point in what is currently our front yard, rather than a lot corner, and it does not reflect a straight line extension, nor does it follow the methodology set out in the policy. It would also result in an irregular lot configuration. Our proposal maintains our long-standing access to the lake at the end of the beach. It preserves our ATV access path. It maintains the functional use of our front yard. It follows the natural topography, and it protects the established drainage path. We have never been advised of any specific issues or concerns identified by the township with respect to our application or with respect to the original rakes survey. We have submitted a letter with our application from our surveyor, Chester Stanton, which specifically addresses how our proposed application represents a fair and equitable approach as required by the township policy. We respectfully ask Council to consider that professional opinion in making its decision. We also ask Council to consider the negative impact a rigid straight line extension would have on our neighbors to the west. We note that there are a number of factual inaccuracies in the letter provided by Lot 80 to the Council regarding consultants, surveys, and the location of our dock. I would be pleased to address those matters directly if Council wishes. However, given my allotted time, I have chosen to focus on why our proposal is the only one that works from a planning and municipal perspective. I also note that we are not aware of any previous point of contention between these properties in respect of use or maintenance. For these reasons, we respectfully request that Council approve our application and decline the Lot 80 proposal. Thank you, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'm going to save all the questions to later.
Okay.
Because I'm going to go on the, on the assumption that everybody's going to remain until we discuss this.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I believe you had somebody else online.
Rachel Pecuniary.
Hi there. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. Hi, Council. My name is Rachel Tignanelli, and I'm a member of the Go Home Lake community. My husband and I purchased our cottage on Go Home Lake in 2019, and it's beloved to us and our two children, who are 1 and 4 years old. We are a concerned party over the conflicting shore road applications, item 11 on your agenda today. My husband and I are a neighboring property to Terry Hearn and Lois Payne, and they have continued to be wonderful, great neighbors and engage us through the last 7 years of their shore road allowance application and all subsequent discussions with Council. They've always worked to ensure that their application is fair to all involved parties. Why we're concerned is we have a boathouse and a dock, and that should a straight line extension be run, it would land all of our existing structures on the wrong side of the property line. Now, this boathouse and the dock predates all 3 parties involved. It also predates all the prior owners that we purchased the cottages from. Thankfully, Township already has a pre-approved way of handling this scenario, which is detailed in Section 18 of the Shore Road Allowance application. Specifically, it's to run a straight perpendicular line general to the line of the shore. I urge Council today to review Section 18 of the Shore Road Allowance application because the supplementary diagram provided is an exact one-to-one picture of the scenario that we face here. However, the policy is not being consistently applied by all involved parties. I ask that Council look at Terry Hearn and Lois Payne's Shore Road application favorably. It is a fair and equitable application, and it respects the placement of all existing structures, and it clearly complies with Section 18 of the Shore Road Allowance application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I applaud somebody who does everything within the 2 minutes. Do we have any other open forum applicants at this point? All right, thank you.
We seem to have lost audio.
Microphone.
I have my microphone on. No wonder nobody's reacting to me. Sorry about that. I would like to change the order of the agenda so that we're going to take item 9 and move it up ahead of item 8. So once we get past the public meeting aspect of our meeting, we'll go straight into the Shore Road Allowance, to which everybody has spoken in the open forum. So let's get the public meeting part done. Now, please indulge us with your patience, and then we will get to this particular Shore Road Allowance that you're interested in. All right. This morning, there is a public meeting scheduled for one Shore Road closing application. I will briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for the meeting. First, the clerk will advise council as to when, how, and to whom notice of the public meeting was circulated for the proposed road closing being considered. Next, staff will advise of the purpose and effect of the bylaws and provide for any other information that is relevant to the applications, and staff will summarize any correspondence on file. From there, the public will have an opportunity to speak and provide comments to the bylaw being considered. Please be respectful of time and be concise with your comments. All commentators are requested to state their name and address. Council will then have an opportunity to provide comments for clarification. I now declare this meeting to be a public meeting pursuant to the Municipal Act of 2001 C-25 as amended to deal with the following proposed road closing, namely R26-02 for 88 Chain of Lakes Road. To our clerk.
Notice of the public meeting was digitally published in a virtual newspaper and was sent to the abutting neighbors in the close proximity of the property at least 30 days prior to this morning's meeting.
Thank you. To our deputy clerk.
Through your worship, this report is before council to consider the closure and conveyance of a portion of the Shore Road Allowance located in front of 88 Chain of Lakes Road. The application proposes to close and convey Part 1 on Plan 35R 28028 with approximately 30.3 meters of shoreline frontage. The purchase price has been calculated at $7,267.26 plus HST in accordance with the Township's Fees and Charges Bylaw. The intent of the application is to maintain consistent ownership and control of the lands directly abutting the subject property. The application was circulated to external agencies and neighboring properties, and no comments or objections were received. Staff have reviewed the application against the Township Shore Road Allowance policy and are satisfied that all requirements have been met. There is no financial impact to the Township. All costs are borne by the applicant, and the transaction will result in revenue. Here's an overview of the subject lands. The property is located on Haggart Lake along Chain of Lakes Road and is zoned shoreline residential type 1. The survey shows Part 1, which represents the portion of the Shore Road Allowance to be closed and conveyed. Based on the information presented, staff recommend that council approve the closure and conveyance of the subject lands and adopt the associated closing and deeming bylaws. I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions, concerns, or comments? Councillor Bocek, please.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. Haggart Lake, if I remember correctly, just east of Mactier is where it's found, and I believe that lake is half in Muskoka Lakes Township, or a portion of it is in Muskoka Lake Township, and I'm just wondering if we did or if there was any reason to reach out to any neighbors or anyone within that region for their comments?
Through your worship, we only circulate to the abutting neighbors, who are the ones that are primarily affected with the closure of the shore road allowance. So we didn't circulate to Muskoka Lakes.
Okay, so there was no one within that area that needed to be notified that was not notified.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Jarvis.
Just out of curiosity, Sydney, I just noticed that in the application itself, it shows a dwelling on an adjacent property right next to, on the shore road allowance for the adjacent property, very close to the lot line. I know it has nothing to do with this specific application, but we've had no comments from that property owner.
Through your worship to Councillor Jarvis, that's correct. It was circulated to the adjacent property owner and we received no comments. It isn't encroaching on the shore road allowance. The setback is small, but we haven't received comments stating that they're an objection to the closure.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I have moved by Councillor Hazelton, seconded by Councillor Bochek. Be it resolved, the council passed the closing bylaw 2026-031 to stop up, close, and convey part of the original shore road allowance in front of Lot 1, Concession 4, being Part 1, Plan 35R 28028, formerly Freeman, now in the Township of Georgian Bay, the District Municipality of Muskoka, 88 Chain Lakes Road, for the purchase price of $7,267.26, subject to all applicable costs and fees being paid in full, and that the council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute any documents necessary to complete the conveyance. All those in favor? And I have everyone. Thank you very much. All right. And now we're going to flip to item 9. Applications to close shore road allowance. And Madam Clerk, I'm going to turn it over to you at this point.
So this report is regarding two applications. SRC 2017-09 for 9362 Go Home Lakeshore and SRC 2019-09 for 9344 Go Home Lakeshore. Sorry, I'm just going to. My presentation today will identify the properties, the history of the applications, and the individual applications and SRA closures being presented, and staff's recommendation for council's consideration. As council is aware, based off of the correspondence received and the comments from open forum today, this matter has been ongoing for nearly a decade with no resolution. Before I go further, I would like to note that due to the age of these applications, they do not meet the current survey parameters and measure the SRA by square meters instead of linear meters. This image shows both applications, with the first applicant at 9362 on the left and the second application of 9344 on the right. So the subject properties are located in Go Home Lake near the entrance to Blue Lagoon and both back onto the Cognishine Lake Conservation Reserve. And here is an aerial image of the location. This shows a close-up of the boundaries of the subject properties. And again, here is the aerial image of those subject properties. Although these two properties are direct neighbors, they stem from separate plans of subdivision. The first applicant of 9362 Go Home Lakeshore was established in 1958 with plan of subdivision M310. On this plan from 1958, the survey pin is identified as to the location at the end of the property boundary in relation to the SRA. This is noted in the red circle in the image. The second applicant at 9344 Go Home Lakeshore was established in 1959 with the plan of subdivision M358. Again, the survey pin is noted on this plan, marking the lot line extension of the SRA. Of note, the survey pin is located under the corner of the dock of 9344 Go Home Lakeshore. So 9362 Go Home Lakeshore has a size of 0.84 acres with 250 feet of frontage. It is zoned shoreline residential type 1 and has water access only. The primary dwelling is original and was built in 1962 and has 459 square feet. Additionally, this property has a small shed and a small wooden dock in disrepair. 9344 Go Home Lakeshore has a size of 1.2 acres with 207 feet of frontage. It is zoned shoreline residential type 1 and is water access only. The primary dwelling was built in 2009 and has 1,587 square feet. Additionally, this property has 2 outbuildings with connected decking and a dock circa 2010. Application SRC 2017-09 has submitted reference plan 35R 264880 for consideration. This image shows the proposed shore road closure for 9362 Go Home Lakeshore. The boundary on the left of the screen extends out into the SRA, then curves to the right, giving a 5-meter setback from the dock of 9344 to permit access and future repair or placement. The boundary to the right has not been disputed. Application SRC 2017-09 has submitted reference plan 35R 26055 for consideration. This image shows the proposed shore road closure for 9344 Go Home Lakeshore. The boundary on the right extends from the property boundary at the start of the SRA across to the right for the purpose of accessing the drainage spout and water's edge. The boundary to the left has not been disputed. This slide shows the overlap between the reference plans and the disputed areas of the application. The red lines note the neighboring property's proposed line in comparison. 9362 Go Home Lakeshore purchased their property in December 2016 and submitted their application to purchase the SRA in September 2017. From there, submitted the current reference plan for consideration in 2021. 9344 Go Home Lakeshore purchased their property in October 2014 and submitted their application to purchase their SRA in June of 2019 and submitted the current reference plan for consideration in October of that year. The next 4 slides identify the disputed lands from the water's view. When each of these applications were received, the existing shore road and road allowance policy was from 2008. It has since been replaced twice. The current policy from 2022 states, generally, the portion of the SRA to be closed and conveyed will be determined by straight line extensions of existing lot lines. Due to the irregular nature of the shoreline, deviations from straight extension of the existing lot lines may be considered. For example, when the side lot lines of the lots are not perpendicular to the shoreline, and to simply extend them would be to the disadvantage of one and to the advantage of the other. Land must be distributed amongst competing owners on a fair and equitable basis, and a method of dividing the land has been approved. This method is to draw a line offshore roughly parallel to the general line of the shore. Perpendiculars are then drawn from the various lot corners to the imagery line offshore. Due to the unique shoreline of this inlet and Go Home Lake, it is nearly impossible to apply Section 18 of the current policy to determine the lot line extension. The existing lot lines of these properties are shown in solid white, with the straight line extension in white dashes. The red lines show the parallel line to the shore per the policy. These red lines are to be used to determine the lot line extension. However, as you can see, these lines intersect, which negates the intention of the policy. Staff would not be supportive of a straight line extension on either side for 9344 Go Home Lakeshore, as this directly intersects with the docks from the shoreline. We are all familiar with the unique geographic landscape of Georgian Bay, which is one of the most beautiful things of our community. However, it does make it impossible to implement policies to take into consideration every possible scenario. It is situations like this that the township needs to consider applications on a case-by-case basis and make decisions that are in the best interest for the applicants, the communities for now and for the future. In 2021, staff attended on site and then further presented a report to council with several options, all of which are still available today, which include 1. Approve application SRC 2017-09 for 9362 Go Home Lakeshore, or approve application SRC 2019-09 for 9344 Go Home Lakeshore, or deny both applications, or approve an alternate line. At that time, council deferred the matter to allow time for the applicants to find an agreeable solution. To date, that has not occurred. In the fall of 2025, legal counsel advised per the Law Society that these applications must find resolution in order to close out the file. This prompted the close report in December of last year. The owners for 9344 Go Home Lakeshore have provided comments in support of their applications citing historical use, drainage, fair division of the shore road. Their neighbors at 9338 Go Home Lakeshore have submitted a letter of support. The proposed lot line extension accommodates their existing dock, and they have expressed interest in purchasing their SRA at a future date. The owners for 9362 Go Home Lakeshore have provided comments in support of their application, citing accommodating 5-meter setback for dock at 9344, need to obtain a building permit to replace existing dock, and fair division of the shore road. Their neighbors at 9378 have not provided written comments. The intention of the policy is to provide fair and equitable divide of the SRAs between the neighbors while maintaining a natural extension of the lot line. Due to the unique geographic landscape of Georgian Bay, exceptions to the policy need to be considered from time to time. Council and staff encourage neighbors to agree to a mutually acceptable resolution. There are sometimes circumstances where the township must make a determination. As it has been stated today, this matter has been ongoing for almost a decade, and resolution is necessary for both the applicants to be able to move forward. Council are only able to approve one application as presented with the existing reference plans. The other applicant would be required to revise the reference plan before moving forward. Reference Plan 35R 26480 Part 1 follows the intention of the policy while still permitting adequate setbacks from existing neighboring structures. This R plan considers the historical lot boundaries per the plans of subdivision from the 1950s, providing fair and equitable allocation of the SRA as intended in front of the subject properties. This approach closely follows the geographic nature of the properties, which is valuable for future use and supports proper planning. Therefore, staff are recommending approval of SRC 2017-09 for 9362 Go Home Lakeshore with the area of Part 1 totaling 1,454 square meters at a purchase price of $8 per square meter per the fees and charges bylaw at the time of their application for a total purchase price of $11,632 plus HST. I welcome council's comments and questions and considerations on this matter, but I do stress the need to make a determination. Thank you.
Excuse me, thank you very much for that, as much as anything, review of the history of the last 9 years of these applications. Council, we need to draw a line. And I'm going to go to the various people. So I see Councillor Predko and then Councillor Bocek.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. I appreciate the complexity of these two applications, and the shoreline, I think, is very representative of the uniqueness of our township in Georgian Bay and our inland lakes, and how the lot lines were drawn initially without real consideration, I think, for the long-term implications, especially around the shore road allowances and the differing policies that we would be going through. And I'm obviously concerned that in the 10 years, the residents haven't been able to come up with a solution on their own, and that council is in this position today. What I see on this report and on these applications, I think, is that, and I think as our clerk has identified, that the sort of straight application of the shore road policy isn't equitable to the neighboring properties, and some accommodation needs to be made. But I guess the question for us today is, and has been put to them for a number of years, is what is that line going to look like between the McKibbons and Payne Hearns? I think that rock outcropping and the drainage issue needs to be addressed as part of what we're coming up with as a solution. there is drainage, and I don't know that we have illustrations of that in our reports today, but the Hearn property does drain over the rocks to the sandy area where I think in the photos we have the boats, the paddle boat, and I think there was a canoe or a kayak. And in that area, that is going to be an area of drainage that would impact the McKibbons if that became their property. On the south side, I think it's property 9378 owned by the Nagy's. It's not being contested today, but the straight line of the Shore Road Allowance is also going to make their dock legal non-conforming if they go for a purchase their Shore Road Allowance. And I'm a little bit concerned that while they haven't contested the application, there may be something in the future that we're going to approve that's going to cause somebody else issues in the future when they go to purchase their Shore Road Allowance and repair their dock, which is eventually going to need to be repaired. If you look at their shoreline, they do have a point, but it is a rocky outcropping around the other side, and I'm not sure at what expense they would have to move their dock. So I think from my perspective, I think council, we need to look for a bit of a compromise to help these. And I think from the 2021 report, there was an outcome that there was a line that could be drawn between the McKibbon report request and the Hearn Payne report that would obviously require new surveys and additional steps in reapplication. But I think there may be something in between those that we need to find today. The other suggestion I have today, and I don't know that this has support of the two different applicants because this is not something that has been fully discussed. And that is, if we look at that area that is in contention between the two applications, if we retain that piece of land as township-owned Shore Road Allowance and provide mutual easements to both property owners so that they have use of that land, and that would address the drainage issues, but would also address the ability for both owners to be able to purchase their Shore Road Allowance for their docks and their maintenance of their own properties. So I'm interested in other people's comments and observations, and I do appreciate the clerk's and the mayor's comments that we need to find a solution for these properties today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bocek.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, I guess my question could be directed at our clerk since she gave the presentation. You were talking about the lot line between the two properties, that the extension heading towards the water could be deviated so that the parallel line would no longer be a parallel line. It would extend straight out into the lake instead of, because the property line the way it is now looks like it's going to go from 9362 would go almost 50% right through the property next door. So A, is there ability to change from a straight lot line to a lot line that doesn't interfere with that property? Or B, which I've had to do in the past, is neighbor 9362 and the neighbor at 44 would agree to a land purchase which would bring that lot line between them straight. So it'd be a V of property that would need to be purchased, and then the lot line would continue out in the lake straight. So I don't know if there's been any talk about the neighbors. You would purchase 9362 would purchase that small V, which would extend the lot line straight out. And I'd probably have to point to it on a map so you'd understand it.
Yeah, so 9344 is suggesting a line that, okay, let's do it this way. 9344 is a pie-shaped lot. So yeah, so if we did the lot line extension, it narrows at their frontage, right?
Correct.
And so we're saying everyone's agreed that drawing that straight line extension would not be equitable to either side and not to their neighbor to the west either.
Right.
Right. So 9344 is suggesting a line that veers substantially to the east, cutting through the front shoreline of 9362.
Right.
And 9362 is proposing a line that's kind of like a hockey stick that goes out a bit and then cuts over to accommodate their frontage and their dock. My report from 2021 did recommend a line that might be somewhere up the middle that is more of a straight line, which maybe is what you're speaking about, is kind of
Yes.
splitting the difference, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. Thanks for the clarity.
Councillor Jarvis.
Yes, and thank you through the mayor and to the clerk. Could you, for my benefit, if we look at the picture with the circle that shows where the contentious area is, your proposed line, where would it be in relation to, I guess, those boats that are pulled up on shore? Is it possible to indicate that at all? I presume if we're looking at the picture shoreline, it'd be to the left of those boats, as opposed to the Hearn Payne application, which would be to the right of the boats. Where are we right there? Yeah. Yeah, we're in relation to those. Yeah, okay, either one, doesn't matter.
So
Approximately.
approximately, so it's kind of hard to tell because again, there's a curvature in the shoreline. So here you can see a little bit of the edge of the rock that comes out. That is approximately where this bush
Yep,
here
yeah.
is. And you can see where this boat kind of comes out.
Any idea where your
So the
proposal would be?
line would kind of come out here.
Yeah, I think the only ones close would be the
Yeah,
boats.
so it kind of,
Would it sort of be between them in that picture then? Or that's a
so
different
right
shot?
now this line from 9344 kind of comes down this way versus 9362
Two.
comes down this way and then cuts over about here.
Oh, it does. That's yours?
Here,
Because
but not quite to the rock's edge. It kind of goes in and then back out. So to split the difference, there would be a line where the shoreline starts and kind of comes straight
right.
down. It would kind of go here.
And the pin is and the pin is under the dock, correct?
They're one from the plan. So
Right.
the plan itself is just.
Okay, that helps me a bit. Next question has to do with the pins on both sides of 9362. Did we not get correspondence that indicated there's some contention that those pins were not applicable to this survey, or am I misreading something that came in correspondence-wise?
The legal counsel for 9344 is arguing the plan of subdivision is not relevant for the lot line extension.
But the lot line extension is all we've got. I mean, that's all we've got, right? From a historical perspective, that's where the pins were put. Okay. Okay, so my question is somewhat unrelated, and maybe you can't answer this. Is the lot on the other side of 9362, if we follow the natural extension based on that pin, we get another pin under another dock. Do we not underneath their boathouse?
So no,
It looks to me like
the aerial image is skewed, as we know happens sometimes with mapping.
right there.
Yeah, so the pin, it's not quite under the dock,
Okay.
but the line would cut through a part of the dock out into the water's edge.
And there's been no issue with that property owner that we're aware of.
We have received absolutely no response from them, and they have received multiple correspondence from us over the years.
Okay, so in essence, what I'm looking at, going back to your proposal, is you're basically splitting the difference on the two applications, correct? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
I'm not seeing other hands raised. I'm going to raise a question. There was reference to a French drain or a drainage pipe, and I'm wondering where that is located in these pictures. I just want to make sure that I understood that correctly. One more.
I just wanted to say our legal counsel does have folder.
I have the photo.
Okay.
We were going to give our so the James Pipe.
Because I think I know where it is. I just want to confirm.
This is a different angle.
Yeah.
So you can see kind of this area here is where the trees were, that bushy area on the other side. Here's that rock edge that's kind of behind the paddle boats. And you can see the drainage pipe is kind of right here, coming out from the base of the rocks.
So the drainage pipe doesn't actually drain onto the beach. It drains just, look at this picture, just to the right of the beach.
Here's that way,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. And then, yeah, I like the way, what I appreciate about this drawing is that there's a lot corner bar circled up at the top left of this shot. And I'm presuming that white line going down goes off the picture on the right-hand side, ends up just at the corner of the dock that's built there.
Generally, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so,
Oh, that's too small.
well, no, actually, no, that they're drawing the hockey stick there.
They're drawing the hockey
okay.
stick. Yes,
Yeah.
sorry, not the, yes.
I mean, I understand we have to draw lines, and I understand that there's a preference for straight lines versus hockey stick lines, if I can call it that. I get that. I also think that Councillor Predko raised a valid concern in spite of the lack of response from the neighbors to the, I believe it's the east, that if at some point down the road they need to work on their docks, they're going to be told, wait a minute here. And you know, what I appreciate about these applications, not only the two in front of us, but also the one farther to the west, is there is a willingness to compromise. And I think that's extremely important. The trouble is in the case of the two couples that are sitting right in front of me, they haven't quite agreed to what their compromise should be, even though both have clearly compromised in other aspects. So, but you know, when I look at this, I appreciated what I appreciate about I'll call it the hockey stick, is it fully respected the 5-meter setback from where the current dock is, in spite of the fact that going back to the 50s, and we like to look, you know, what's behind all this. Clearly, the drawings and the lot line was made very clear on those drawings that it should just go straight right underneath the dock of the neighbors to the left or to the west. Obviously, you know, that I don't know how long ago that dock was built, but nobody worried about it at that point. And I don't think right now the neighbors to the right aren't really worried about where the dock's located. That's not the issue, other than there has to be some compromise on the line. And in my mind, and I hate to say this in the sense of it means new surveys have to be done, but you know, somebody's going to have to do a new survey regardless of what happens. In my mind, I think that the applicant should consider, instead of a hockey stick design, rather a straight line, and that straight line should be just to the, call it to the right, to the east of the drainage, so there's no issue with the drainage being cut off or the drainage easement or that. But I think at the same time, on the other side, on the extreme east side, there should be a little angling of that line so it doesn't cut through the dock that already exists, just to save us going through that grief down the road, in spite of the neighbors being silent. Now, I'm not being sympathetic to any of our applicants, sorry. I'm just trying to be coldly logical about this. But I think, the neighbors, the applicants who are directly at the base of the bay are going to have a shoreline that's slightly narrower than the width of the lot, because that's the nature of a bay. And so to me, and I'm, whether you're looking at it from my perspective, your perspective, it's the same sort of thing. I imagine the property lines going out is to the shore road allowance, and then each one leaning in a little, not a lot, but a little, to reflect the fact that they're at the end of a bay. That's my perspective on it. And I think that the neighbors going up on either side, the same thing. Their lot lines will angle a little bit, not necessarily perpendicular to the shoreline, because as you pointed out, that with an irregular shoreline, you can't always be perfectly perpendicular because the shoreline wiggles. But they'll angle a little bit. They'll angle a little bit. In my mind, I would think that would be the best compromise. My comments. Council, I'm going to turn it back to you if anybody else wants to make additional comments. And we're going to go to, Councillor Hazelton, we haven't heard from you on this yet.
Can I ask the applicants a question?
Absolutely, because that was going to be another step in this whole thing.
Okay, so the owners of 9362, that's you. Can you, just so that we can hear your response? So when you bought the property, what was your understanding of what the frontage of the property was? Was there any explanation to you when you were buying it?
When we bought the property, it was 250 feet of frontage, which was basically the whole sand beach. And then on either side, there's rock that's roughly whatever on the side.
Quite a bit of rock on each side and quite a bit of rock at the rear. It's like a natural boundary.
All around the property.
Also, the real estate person showed us, it was winter time, so he couldn't show us the exact same line, but he went out and showed us where the shore road was. And because we're ones that we like research and make sure we understand what we're buying, we actually went to the Bracebridge, was it the registry office? And actually looked at the original survey that showed it. So our understanding was that's what we were getting. And like I said, as soon as we closed, we jumped on it. And then our surveyor came out and he was new. Now the company might have been an older company, but he was new to the company. And anyways, he went out and surveyed it, and then we went and looked at it and it didn't look right. So we went back to him and questioned it. And like he took forever, like months to get back to us. And we sent lots of things in writing and we said like the measurements and this and that. So anyways, eventually he got back to us. At the same time, Amber McDonald at the town was sending something back to us saying, you have not gone in accordance to township policy. You need to do this. You need to buy the whole shore road allowance. And then that's how it all started. So we actually had to pay, even though we had already paid for the original survey, the original shore road allowance, we actually had to go and pay again to get him to correct it in accordance to the township guidelines and procedures. And at that point, because we already knew our neighbors didn't have a permit and all that, and we don't really know a lot about surveys or any of this. We're new cottagers. We were trying to be fair. So we said, don't run it through the dock. Turn it before the dock so they could still use their dock. And we did not know them. So at that time, Amber McDonald said, okay, so now that you've done this survey, because you did not do straight line extension, we have to communicate that with the neighbor before you go to like what we're doing today, right? So that's how it all started. And then, like I said, the township lawyer got involved, and they were trying to think of a fair alternative for both of us. And they came back with, letting the neighbor keep their dock plus give another 5 meters so they could maneuver. And then there was an objection. So then we hired, because this guy was supposed to be an expert, John Hiley, like a very renowned surveyor, and we did ask him to be fair. Because we knew the policy said straight line extension, but it did talk about being fair and equitable. So he came out, he presented us all the information. We went back in, and it was actually, I think, pre-COVID, because it didn't get registered till I think April 2021 because of COVID. Everything was slow. So, and like the people we bought it from, like I have all their history, and I talked to the kids in that. They've had that property since 1958. They built the cottage 1962. They went to that cottage, they used the rock, everything, until they got ill. The lady died, the mom, she was 85 and she died in March 2016. And then the husband, he was 88 and he died in the fall, November of 2016. And that's when the kids, like the daughter lived out west, the son had a farm, they're too busy. And then that's when they sold it to us. But we really did our due diligence, we did our research, and we really have tried to be fair. And it's so heartbreaking because our dream, like we spent years looking at Go Home before we bought this property. I grew up going to the cottage up there and rock, like canoeing and all that. I really loved it because Georgian Bay is so beautiful and rugged. And, and our kids have missed out like 9 years, and so it's been really hard for
I think what
us.
Ellie's saying, if I can just butt in, is that we have a piece of property, and it is a beautiful piece of property. Like Ellie said, we've been looking for property on Go Home for years and years and years. It's been so long, it's probably 15, 20 years. We finally found this piece of property, which was absolutely what we wanted.
Perfect.
With the sand beach, which is really rare. And then we knew we needed to do work because the cottage is just too old.
It's old.
So
I think
our problem is,
we got to get
yeah,
back to
I
that
think the
discussion.
problem
We're kind of held hostage. Like
Yeah,
we can't
we
do
can't go
anything.
in.
And so we only just go up for an hour or two to check to make sure, because
All
our
right,
insurance.
so let's get this back to Councillor Hazelton,
Okay.
because I
So-
think he had
Okay.
follow-up to it.
So the, what I haven't been able to discern here is in the survey diagrams, does the hockey stick line include the rock or exclude the rock?
Includes
the
some
rock.
of the rock. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
That's-
you.
Councillor Jarvis, followed by Councillor Predko, please.
Thank you, and I appreciate being allowed to talk again. I just caution both parties that as soon as you leave this in a third party's hands, of course, nobody's going to be happy, I don't think, with anything we come up with here. I am in agreement with the mayor on the concept of doing something with that line on the eastern, I guess the eastern is the western side, the other neighbors, so we don't have this issue come back at us again, and I'm wondering if that could be dealt with.
Well, I threw it out there, but I think we have to first establish what line we'd be willing to approve between the two neighbors that are in front of us.
So is that the only line we're dealing with today?
Well, no, but
Unfortunately
Okay,
not.
the clerk wants to interrupt me.
That is the only line being contended at this point in time.
Only dealing with the lot line between the two parties that are here today. Okay, I appreciate that.
Councillor Predko, Bocek, then Hazelton following.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, and maybe a question first to you or the clerk, and is that, as we're talking about this, and there is some discussion of compromise between these two applications that council might be making today, can we ask the applicants their thoughts on what they think might be a reasonable compromise for council to consider, or is that strictly on our shoulders today?
All right, well, do you want can you make a specific ask of a specific applicant?
Sure. I mean, I guess for the McKibbons, the one suggestion that has had been thrown out in 2021 was a line between what the Payne Hearn application was compared to theirs as from the corner of the lot line, or another solution, and going back to the suggestion I had made about retaining a trapezoid of shore road allowance that had mutual easements, so you both had mutual benefit of the land, but it would resolve the issue for the long term. And do you have a sense of what would work better for you, or for that you would find acceptable?
As far as coming up with a line in between the two, I would say no. That's not fair and equitable to ourselves, I don't believe. As Mayor said, I would think, and I think I would be reasonably to say that I would go to where the drainage comes out of the rock there. I'd come out that far. But other than that, I don't want to, because we are losing a lot of our land, and really no one else is. We've basically done this 3 times over with surveys, and all we do is keep spending money but not getting any further. So I think that's very fair if we would move the line over to where the drainage is, just to the one side of that drainage pipe, and then that's it.
As
And
long
then
as
runs
we
straight, and then it runs straight up to the connecting line, the intersecting line. And I think that would be fair for both parties.
We would like to keep the beach.
Because that's what we bought. We
Yeah,
bought
we
it
bought
as
it because the beach.
That's the reason.
Our clerk is being artistic.
So based off the discussion that has taken place, I've quickly mocked up a line based off the discussion, just so there's a visual for everyone. So the split the difference line would be the red line that allows the drainage line to still stay with 93, kind of backwards, 93.44, and then the beach would remain with 93.62.
Do you have a surveyor's license? Dang. All right. I had Councillor Bochek next.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, I know the report has come from Director of Corporate Services and our clerk. I'm wondering if I can ask a question to our planning department?
You may.
Thank you. As our planning department is very aware that this has been going on for quite some time, and my experience with surveyors is they count on GeoHub quite a bit, which I'm sure you're all aware of. Now, GeoHub over the years has changed. There's been more accuracy to the lot lines over the years, and apparently the current GeoHub is correct. I'm just wondering if, due to the fact that this has been going on over a number of years, is this still accurate, what we're seeing in front of us with the GeoHub today?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bochek. In staff's experience, GeoHub is certainly a useful tool, but we have not and continue not to rely on it to that level of accuracy.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
And there are pins in the rock at certain points on those surveys. Where am I? I'm going to Councillor Hazelton.
A question for the clerk, please. I think I heard something about the challenges of 30, not 44, so what's the other lot? 62. Want to repair their dock and do other things. Have you discussed with them the license of occupation concept, and is that available?
So the license of occupation process will only permit a like-for-like dock. Their current dock is quite small and only accommodates a smaller sized boat. I do have an image I can show you.
Yeah,
The size of it. It's just.
But we have other examples where somebody has built a new dock, or we have considered a new dock with a license of occupation. So why wouldn't that apply?
It could, but only a like-for-like dock, and they are interested in having a larger dock.
I know, but I'm just saying that
And-
we've entertained in other circumstances
Correct.
where there's no dock, a new dock that doesn't have the constraints of a like for like. So why wouldn't that apply here?
We don't have any like that.
So could council make a decision to approve that kind of thing? Because what we're faced with here, as I observe, is we have a boundary line between two properties, which is at risk of debate. We have a boundary line on the east side of the one property that I think there's discomfort in us allowing that to go ahead because it's going to have a future impact on that other neighbor with the dock if they come to make changes. So given those other constraints and given all the costs of surveys and everything else, wouldn't the ability of giving this property owner permission to do the things that they need to do to build the kind of dock that they want, what could we as council do to approve that so that we can stop the battle of the shore road allowance? Because that's township land. Nobody owns it except the township. And so, you know, there's a perception that that's our shore road allowance, but it's not. It's a township land until it's divided, in which case then it belongs to somebody else. So we own all the land. We may want, we're trying to adjudicate challenge here, but at the end of the day, what the property owner wants to do is build a bigger dock and fix up his cottage. So how do we enable that?
I believe the CBO would like to comment.
Thank you to Councillor Hazelton. Just on note, and I haven't been a big part of this, but there are structures on both sides on township lands. I think it's in the best interest to draw a line and sell them because they're going to have issues moving forward on both sides. So anytime they need to apply for a permit or fix a structure or do anything along those lines, somebody will be back here at some point to the township trying to get approval for that. So I think.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm frustrated with is the lot on the east has a proposed shore road closing line that will impact the other lot more east. So that's going to require a new survey. Then we have the lot on the left, which is in debate of that lot on the east. So 44 is not agreeing with 32. And I think our clerk came up with what could be a brilliant solution of pinning a line between the drainage pipe and the back pin. But that's still going to require a new survey. So are we going to end up this discussion by saying, go do another survey and come back? And basically gamble again that when they come back, we're going to approve it. Or do we approve it subject to some conditions? I mean, I think we want to end this circular process. Somehow we want to, I think, get this date in time to a decision of some kind, maybe with conditions that allow us to move forward. And for example, the property on the most east, not 32, but the one on the most east that has not made any comment, you know, if the line is going to prevent them from updating their dock in the future because that projected line isn't 5 meters away from the dock, then maybe we have to factor in some of those characteristics and approve subject.
Yeah, and we can certainly approve, let me call it an amended application, subject to certain conditions being met, including a new survey. We can do that.
Okay, I would be in favor. I think we have to stop this chaos and get to a point of maybe everybody doesn't like it, but here's a path, and you have now something that you can work with and go forward.
Yep. All right, council. Any other comments or suggestions? Councilor Bochek.
Just for clarity, through you, Mayor, from what I hear, the proposal is to have the drainage pipe land closer to the beach.
The proposal is to move the line over so that the drainage pipe is entirely on one property. It doesn't get cut off by the property line. Not to move the drainage pipe, but to move the line to acknowledge the drainage pipe.
Oh, thank you. Would it not make sense to move the pipe over to the beach area and then draw the line based on that?
Why move the pipe that's already existing and working?
Hey? No. All right, I just thought it'd make things simpler. Perhaps the clerk could add some context to that. I do believe with what the mayor is saying, but
I think the reason the pipe is there is because of the rock. So that's the option for where that drainage can come out.
so it'd be more like a weeping tile than a.
Kind of.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Councilor Graziano, you haven't spoken to this yet.
No, I haven't, but I'm just curious if the clerk can put back up her proposed picture there. I just want to, I think as we're discussing it, it might help us have a visual, because there's a lot of discussions around moving lines, and it just helps give bearing. Thank you.
This side where my mouse is 93.44, and this side where my mouse is 93.62.
In the
And then
proposal,
here's the pipe.
yeah. Unless someone else asks for something else, can we just?
Councilor Cooper.
I'm for the red line. Everybody compromise a little bit here and let's get it done. Thanks.
Wow. Others could take lessons from you getting to the point. Yeah, you can speak to the matter briefly. No.
You have to come to the microphone, please.
Hello, Mr. Hearn speaking. Just a point of clarification on the drainage pipe and the overall drainage, Your Worship. The drainage pipe is where it's shown. However, the overall drainage from the lot, from the developed portion of the lot, including all of the cottage and the surrounding land that drains down on it, it discharges and comes down the side because of the gravity and discharges right at the yellow paddle boat there. Now, and I'm just correcting is that's a fact. And there are some pictures included, I think, in the presentations that show the effect of that through, in large storms. There's washouts there, and we clean them up. But that's so that's the way the lot drains. A great portion of the overall lot is draining off the land, off the slope, and down to the paddle boat. And Lois can testify to that too, because she's the one putting all the sand back when it does wash out. So,
thank you.
And I, just so you know too, I am qualified drainage expert. Thank you.
Okay.
As well, please.
Sorry,
Thank you.
closer to the mic, please,
Oh, yeah,
so,
sorry.
just so the people
Forgot that.
online can hear.
Yep, got it. Councillor Predko made a suggestion that the whole disputed area could be perhaps removed from the sale. That, I think, respectfully, would work better than this partial solution to the whole drainage issue. So that the disputed area, which goes right down to the paddle boat there, would somehow not be included within one ownership or the other. Other than that, I think there would have to be drainage easements negotiated, because this is an established drainage path.
I would say under normal circumstances, people do not have drainage easements when it's the natural flow of water, because that's all around us. Water flows onto our properties, water flows off of our properties, and normally people do not have easements for that drainage if it follows call it the natural route.
We understand that, Your Worship, and in lieu of that, if and these aren't necessarily things we would like, but at least some type of protection in a covenant or something like that, that the owner of the adjacent property understands and recognizes that the drainage from our lot does and will continue, that, you know, as it naturally does now.
Fuller Jarvis, we're going back to you.
Yeah, really quick, and if you wouldn't mind answering a question for me, then the pipe that we are seeing in this picture, where does it originate?
Yeah, I can't, there's no diagram of it. I can't actually tell you where. I can tell you where I think it comes from, but the drainage, the underground drainage system, and there's very little, was installed by Mr. Rankin's builders when they developed the lot in the cottage in 2009. So there's been a pathway for an ATV down to, because they would take their ATV down to the dock and back up to the rear of the cottage, and we talked about that access before, to unload and load. So from what I can gather, it drains that area.
So it drains.
So it drains.
It drains the McKibbon property.
Pardon?
It drains from the other property. It doesn't drain from your property.
It drains. Oh no, it drains from our. Oh well, yeah. It drains from your property. It drains the area that we've occupied on the shore allowance, and the pathway of the shore allowance.
Right. It looks like it follows. It looks like logically it would follow the rock surface. It follows the base of that.
Yes, it curves. That's correct. Yes, it curves that way.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Hazelton.
Question for the clerk and maybe for other staff. Bridging from what Councillor Predko suggested of leaving a section there owned by the township, what are the thoughts, policies on that?
It would not be in the best interest for the township to remain ownership of a small parcel. Long-term planning that will create greater complications and headaches, because then it's land that we are legally liable for, that we can't access and we can't maintain, as is most of our shore road. But especially when it's a smaller portion like that, it will be continued to be utilized by both properties or anyone in that area potentially, because again, it's municipal land. So in theory, anyone could pull a boat up and have a picnic, so to speak. Most people aren't doing that on shore roads, but in theory you could. And if there were any easements or municipal easements put over access, and that would cause more issues and more complications about what's registered on title, what our liabilities are, and long-term planning, if anything needed to be developed, adjacent to that, it pushes their setbacks even further away than if the line had been somewhere in the middle.
Okay. Another question, if I may, to you. Who's the owner of the paddle boat?
We are 9344.
Okay, so if the red line existed as the boundary, presumably then 9344 would be trespassing on 9362 by putting their paddle boat there.
Correct.
So is that given that that appears to be an existing use, is that an issue? I guess there are neighbors that get along and there are neighbors that don't. And we have a situation where it appears to, from a lot perspective, lot line drawing perspective, they're not getting along. But if the line was there, would there be now usage problems between the neighbors? I mean, I don't know.
It's my understanding that the previous owners of 9362 permitted the owners of 9344 to use their beachfront. I'm going to use their beachfront kind of to launch their kayaks, etc., just because it was an easier access point than them using their own dock and waterfront. But they did so knowingly that that was historically 9362's.
But we can't legislate cooperation, can we? Thank you.
Councillor Bochek?
Thank you. And it's rare, but I think Councillor Cooper brings up a good point here. That red line makes sense to me, but my question is, if that becomes the property line, is there not a 5-meter setback from that property line?
So for any future development, yes. So that white line, kind of how it comes out, it almost looks like it's pointing to you where you are right now.
Right.
If it extended off. That white line permits a 5-meter setback from the existing dock at 9344 Go Home Lakeshore. So that red line would be even further from their dock. At this point in time, that red line wouldn't impact any structures. I believe they were further than 5 meters from that line.
Okay, so the drainage pipe would be allowed within that 5-meter setback according to our bylaws?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so from my point of view, the red line makes sense. Water does turn corners. If you take that drainage and you make a 90-degree and take it over where that rock is in front of your property and have it drain into the lake there, I think it solves the issue of washing out the beach. But we have to get to some sort of resolve to this. And I think there's going to have to be a compromise by both neighbors in order to make this thing work. And if it takes us to make the decision, to make you do the things that need to get done, then that's what might happen. But it'd be better that the two neighbors talked together and said, okay, let's move this drain over a bit. Let's get the property lines straightened out, because I'm sure, like my parents, you want to get this settled before your kids or whatever get into this situation where they need everything solved before they acquire the land. So my suggestion would be, same as Councillor Cooper, the red line looks good. Move that drainage over so it's not interfering with their beach, and everybody will be happy, and we can move forward. But I think a decision needs to be made today.
Can I say one more thing? Your worship? Yeah, Terry's saying that.
If I could,
on that drain.
But I don't want a lengthy discussion. One thing you
I appreciate that, but maybe just to take a little more time, or someone in the field could see that we couldn't do that without blasting rock. And it's very difficult. Like, I think we're agreeable to the principles here and that, but the implementation, we have to consider the implementation.
Okay. We've been at this for an hour. Let's move on with this. Councillor Graziano, followed by Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Worship. I feel that the red line is the most logical, so that's where I'm going to go. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to say the red line again, and it's really very interesting that Councillor Bochek actually recognized my common sense, which is quite frequent. Thank you.
You got to enjoy those moments, don't you?
Yeah, you have to.
All right. Council, I'm going to read a draft motion, and any conversation we have from now on is on the draft motion. Sure. And that is, be it resolved that council receive the information presented regarding the application SRC-2017-09 for 9362 Go Home Lake Shore and SRC-2019-09 for 9344 Go Home Lake Shore, and that council approve the applications as amended to reflect, 1, a lot line extension between 9344 and 9362 be a straight line from the start of the Shore Road allowance extended to the water's edge to the east of the drain. In other words, the red line. That the lot line extension between 9362 and 9378 return to the west to accommodate the dock at 9378. In other words, move it a little bit so that it recognizes the dock from, I'm going to call them the silent partners or the silent neighbors, and that the lot line extension between 9388 and 9344, that's the neighbors farther to the west, remain as shown on 35R-26055, and that the applicants return with revised reference plans. I don't know, I don't think, and this would this still have to come in front of council? No?
It would need to come in front of council, yes.
No, but hopefully without discussion. All right, Councillor Predko.
Thank you for recognizing me, and through you, Chair. I just wanted to make sure that we are talking about east of the drain and not south of the drain, because I don't want the Hearns and the McKibbons to go away and there be any confusion about what council is directed today.
Yeah, east of the drain. In other words, basically the beach edge side of the drain. That is east, I believe. Yeah.
I'm just questioning whether or not it's south, but.
Good. The planning department's saying east.
Okay, if that's what the planning department says, I believe them. Okay. Not that I don't believe you, but I believe the planning department.
Okay, the intention is to the left of the drain if you're looking at it from the water. Okay. Any other comments? So, Councillor Hazelton.
Is there any way that we can put conditional approval words in here?
That's the approve the applications as amended to reflect these changes, but regardless, it has to come back to council to pass bylaws. To
be formalized, the bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, but this is essentially conditional approval.
Approve as amended.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to have moved by Councillor Predko, seconded by Councillor Hazelton. Does anyone want the motion read another time? You can see it there. Okay. I'm going to say all those in favor is what I'm going to call. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm missing 6, and I make 7. That is carried. All right. I think our applicants are frustrated and happy at the same time. And if not, you're frustrated and happy at the same time. Because it's taken too long, it's been too bad, but I think we've now, council has thrown at you what we think is actually the best long-term solution, and hopefully it all proves to be such. Thank you. And I think to the best of my knowledge, our next discussion could be a bit lengthy. So I'm going to suggest we take a little break. And let's return at 11:45, please. 10:34.
Is it just me or is there no audio?
I'm not getting an
Start
audio.
Good morning, everyone, council, and everyone in attendance. My name is Jeff Kratke, and I'm here today regarding a decision meeting of council for application number Z2601, a 6 Mile Lake gross floor area definition. The subject lands include the entirety of the 6 Mile Lake, and they are depicted in this key map within the red dotted boundaries. The purpose and effect of this application is to reestablish the definition of gross floor area, or GFA, for dwellings in the 6 Mile Lake residential SR6 zone as it existed when the maximum GFA limits were set. The effect of the application is to exclude certain areas, for example, attached garages, unfinished basements, etc., from GFA. On March 10th, 2026, there was a public meeting before council regarding this proposed zoning bylaw amendment. And generally, the public input can be summarized as an equitable compromise, fair to most, allows a modest increase, and there was an opposition to any further delay. Council did express some concerns. They were concerned about ambiguities. They were concerned about too many definitions of gross floor area. However, council did recognize that it did appear to be an equitable approach, and council noted the need through the upcoming review of the official plan and zoning bylaw to review additional things such as definitions of basements, walkout basements, garages, etc., and also to tie in with the blasting bylaw review and update. The bylaw that's before council today is identical to the one that has been discussed at the public open house and the public meeting. It amends the zoning bylaw once housekeeping Z2415 takes effect in such a way that there will be a unique definition of gross floor area applicable to the 6 Mile Lake community. And that definition does not return word for word to the original definition that applied when the maximum gross floor area limits that are in the zoning bylaw was set, but it does capture the spirit and intent of that definition in a way that staff believe is defendable. In my analysis of the proposed bylaw, which is in my report in great detail, it does have regard to Section 2 of the Planning Act and the purposes of planning. It is consistent with the provincial policy or provincial planning statement 2024. It conforms to the Muskoka official plan and Georgian Bay official plan policies, and it maintains the intent and purpose of the remaining parts of the Georgian Bay zoning bylaw. Council does have options today. You could approve the bylaw as recommended by me. You could refer it back to staff with reasons. You could defer it, or you could refuse it, instead adding it to the review and update. The recommendation that's before you today was revised late yesterday when we learned that the Ontario Land Tribunal had still not issued a decision regarding the settlement on the housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment Z2415. So this is similar to the other resolutions that you've been dealing with since that time. I do have good news, though. I think we're getting close to a decision from the OLT. So be it resolved that council approves the zoning bylaw amendment, application number Z2601, to add a new definition of gross floor area, GFA, applicable to dwellings in the 6 Mile Lake, SML, inland waterfront community, and that council enacts bylaw 2026, number to be determined, the SML GFA definition, being a zoning bylaw amendment number Z2601 to further amend zoning bylaw 2014-75 for the 6 Mile Lake, SML, inland waterfront community, and that bylaw 2026, number to be determined, take effect upon the Ontario Land Tribunal decision regarding bylaw 2025-053 for housekeeping Z2415
in the matter of OLT 25-000-597, and followed by the appeal period pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, over to you. Any questions or comments on this matter? Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Bocheck, please.
Just briefly, I'd like to throw out a slightly minor adjustment to the resolution. I think if this has been found that this is what 6 Mile Lake wants, terrific. I'd certainly be in support of it, but I think if we had the verbiage found only in 6 Mile Lake, as opposed to just this applies to 6 Mile Lake, because I am very concerned that this verbiage will then be applied elsewhere. And I certainly don't want to see that, mainly because I don't want to see extra sleeping areas in basements and all that kind of thing that can happen. Just ask MPAC about that subject. Anyway, so I would like to see just a little bit of an adjustment in the verbiage that it applies only to 6 Mile Lake, the word only, or exclusively, or whatever might work for the planners, but that's just a suggestion that I'm suggesting here. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh. Our clerk will work on that possibility while Councillor Bocheck asks his question or makes his comment, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, my question is to our planning department, Mr. Kranke, most likely. In your report, as in the standards within the Township of Georgian Bay, the square meters of a building interior, which is your GFA, is calculated using the measurements from the outside of the or from the interior walls or the exterior walls of the building, is what you're classing as gross floor area, instead of the measurement on the inside of the building, which is typical in this township. One is gross floor area, one is the footprint. Can you tell me why we use the gross floor area based on the footprint and not the interior walls?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that is actually the standard approach in other traditional definitions of gross floor area, that they are from the exterior walls. And as of now, the three with housekeeping, existing definitions of gross floor area all go from the exterior walls. In fact, some of the existing definitions of gross floor area include space beyond exterior walls under eave projections.
Like overhangs?
Yes.
Wow. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
Just a little bit of information on that question. And I recall a number of years ago, we had an application for a residence, I believe it was Honey Harbor, but it doesn't really matter where it was, that they were building a cottage with straw as the exterior, and the straw, it was in bales, and it was about 2.5, 3 feet thick. And at the time, it was determined that because of the mass of the building would be significantly greater with walls of this thickness, that you had to consider all of that as gross floor area. So I think that sort of aligns with what Jeff Kratzky is remarking here. I just thought we should remember that history. It was effectively, it's the massing that is what needs to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Graziano.
Thank you, and hats off to staff for carrying this to the finish line, at least what we may perceive as a finish line today, if council so wills it. We heard the community who attended, and they feel, as you've reported, that this is a valid compromise. We have both the lake associations that have concluded that this is a great compromise and that will likely set aside the contentiousness within the lake and some friction there on how to address this. Council has in previous conversations, again, as you've kind of articulated, stated that this is a good overall compromise. You did mention in today's report that while it doesn't capture verbatim the 2012 original pre-change definitions, that it captures everything in its spirit. And I'm just curious because absent in today's report any red line changes that I could kind of reference to determine original versus current or proposed, what specifically would be changed, if anything? Or what wording perhaps has been changed to update it to today's standards, if any? So I just want to make sure that we capture that information. Thank you.
Sure, and with the mayor's permission, I may open up the previous presentation to council and share just the definitions that were discussed. And I won't bother trying to go into a slideshow, but essentially the top definition is the 1998 definition, when the gross floor area limits, the maximum limits were set. And the red text, green text, blue text is the attempt to link to the bottom definition, which is the one you're approving today, the purposes and intent of the language. But one of the key differences, which isn't colored in that text, is something that Councillor Cooper brought to staff's attention, which was the concern about this using a definition of gross floor area, using the notion of total floor area. And staff agreed with him that that was not a good way to define the term gross floor area. And so you do not see any inclusion of the phrase total floor area in the new definition, which again is for all dwellings except an apartment dwelling located in the 6 Mile Lake inland waterfront community. Gross floor area means the area measured between the exterior walls on all floors below, at, and above finished grade, including any screened porch, veranda, or sunroom, but excludes an attached private garage, any covered entrance, and an unfinished basement or cellar, which is used for mechanical plumbing equipment, storage of personal goods or effects, and or personal laundry facilities. And so again, we think we've struck a balance here that followed what the definition of gross floor area was when the maximum limits were set. So therefore, we should be doing apples to apples as opposed to apples to oranges with the maximum limits. But at the same time, we're hoping to avoid some, not all. There is still this unfinished basement, which I agree is something that might be abused. We've tried to avoid some of the pitfalls of the 1998 definition.
Follow up, Your Worship. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for the explanation and for the presentation here. This is helpful to be able to have eyes on it, even though it was microprint on my computer and very hard to read. But everything looks great. I understand that this is being proposed as perhaps an interim measure that will then inevitably weave itself into our official plan review / whatever changes come out of that review. You know, and I want to be cognizant of community plans, but I also want to ensure that collectively we have a unified, if possible, definition of GFA that's applicable township-wide. And I think that this is perhaps, again, maybe it's a naive comment. I'm not sure if that's ever going to be achievable because each community has its nuanced requirements. But with that said, you know, I want to be sure that, you know, the 6 Mile Lake community and the pool and Honey Harbor and COG and everyone else within, you know, our municipality has the same relatively close application to GFA, so there's no differences. Is this something that we're going to be looking at in the future? Is this possible? Is it naive of me to assume that it's possible? Over to you.
The short answer is yes. We definitely are going to be looking at this in the future. How far we will go will depend on the community and whether the various communities are willing to explore this notion of a single definition of gross floor area. I think the challenge is that a lot of the communities, as Councillor Cooper has been very clear, are very concerned with changes to their definitions of gross floor area. And so I don't think we can ignore that. And so would I suggest to you that I think the outcome will be a single definition of gross floor area for the entire municipality? I have no idea. I honestly do not know. But I think the range could be anywhere from, for example, for this new 6 Mile Lake definition, simply adjusting it to reflect new definitions of, say, walkout basement, and cellar, so that some of the public comments about, well, we don't want to go from a 2-story building on 6 Mile Lake to a 3-story building on the frontage of 6 Mile Lake, so that those types of matters can be addressed through the regulations in the zone. But I think, again, what we're hoping as staff to do is to move away from having too much regulation in definitions. We would much rather see the regulations that shape the way in which the built form, the way in which development takes place on the land to the zone as opposed to the definition. And from that perspective, if there is a way to ensure that what individual communities are now trying to achieve through a definition, that it can be achieved in their zone without it necessarily being baked into the definition, perhaps there is an opportunity. But again, this is very early days, and I don't want to pretend to know where we will, as a township, land through the review and update.
One more follow-up.
Okay, but I want to get back to 6 Mile Lake.
And thank you for that. So I'm assuming that zones would effectively be parallel to a community plan, if kind of that's where I'm understanding. And we're maintaining a community plan by way of calling it or rephrasing as a zone. My last question is just with regards to defendability. And, you know, if, in your opinion, do you feel that community plans are equally as defendable in an OLT matter than they would be otherwise if we had a collective consensus on a definition around GFA?
So everything that I'm about to say is without contemplating what may come out of Bill 98, which you will receive a presentation later today from our director. Yes, in my opinion, we are very capable of defending the policies and the requirements and regulations for each individual community before the Ontario Land Tribunal. That being said, Bill 98 poses some new questions, comments, concerns that you'll discuss later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Predko.
Sure, thank you. And through you, Chair, just a very quick question to our planner, Mr. Kratky. And just going back to basements and cellars, and I appreciate what you're putting into this is anticipation that we'll have a better definition of cellars in the future. In the meantime, how do you expect unfinished basements to be treated? And the only reason I ask is that, you know, there are some basements that are unfinished and there are some basements which are unfinishable. And will you be trying to make a distinction in your GFA calculations in the interim, or how will you be handling that?
No, so we cannot apply what might be coming. And so if there is a development application, as I discussed during the public meeting before council regarding this matter, if there is an application that comes to council that proposes something based upon the current definitions, there may be situations that may not necessarily be exactly as council and planners might like. However, as you may recall, I also pointed out that the background study that we did on 6 Mile Lake learned some very interesting things about 6 Mile Lake. And that is that the majority of the lots are much smaller than what we are now currently planning for. And so while the change in definition might lead to some additional development rights, in most cases, most, not all, it would be a very, very small amount. Because again, there's still issues of lot coverage, setbacks, etc. So it's not as though it's a carte blanche on development. But yes, could there be unintended consequences on some of the large vacant lots on 6 Mile Lake in the short term? Yes, it is a risk that while we have these current definitions of basement and cellar, which speak to the amount, which speak to varying amounts of land above or below the grade, there is a risk that there may be certain circumstances where the grade is such that it might appear to the casual observer that there is a 3-story front wall to a building. Councillor Bocek.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, most of my question was answered through Councillor Pretko's questions, but I still do have one. Mr. Crackey, with the changes in the gross floor area, and we've talked repeatedly about the view from the canoe and how 6 Mile Lake doesn't want to see 3-story buildings. With the difference you've made with exposing the basement, if it's half in the ground or half out of the ground, or if it's mostly exposed, it's not a 3-story building, it's a 2-story, but now it has a walkout, which you included walkouts in this. Here's my question. In the past, we have limited basements, cellars, whatever, to a maximum height of 5'11". Am I correct there?
So there's a metric equivalent, but yes, it's set essentially the same number as the height in the building code. That's correct.
Okay, so if somebody does have a walkout basement that has been used as a basement for just laundry facilities, storage, etc., and they decided they want to convert that into a living space or a rec room type of thing like you'd have in a residential area outside of Muskoka, how is this going to affect them? Because right now they have 11 or a 5'11" ceiling, they have a walkout basement, and they want to now develop their basement, which under this new law they could, by achieving something over 5'11". Am I correct?
Well, so if the building is already existing, it should already comply to the existing zoning bylaw.
Correct.
And so this really isn't about an existing building suddenly having a different use within its basement. This is about someone who's proposing to build a new dwelling on a lot, and whether that dwelling is replacing an existing dwelling or whether that dwelling is on a vacant lot, they would be now, if this application goes forward, able to have a basement, if it were unfinished, which is excluded from gross floor area. And so this is not about the existing building that is not having alterations done, because it's there. It must have complied with the zoning bylaw as it existed from whenever that building was built. This is about what happens next.
Okay. So it's a moving forward.
Yes. And is there a possibility that in the next few months there might be an application for a walkout basement that is supposed to be unfinished, which would present itself potentially as a 3-story frontage on 6 Mile Lake? The answer is yes, there is that risk.
Okay, and the preface, moving forward means a lot to me because a lot of the questions that have been asked of me is, well, one in particular, to achieve the 5'11" basements would be not included in their gross floor area. They had to pour 2 feet of cement in their basement because they had planned on using it as a full basement. Once our building department got there, they said, nope, 5'11" is the max. So they filled the whole basement with 2 feet of concrete. Now with this new law, he was asking me, can we bust out that concrete and make a downstairs living quarters? And that's what my question is based on.
Let's go to our CBO. She's keen.
There we go.
Through the mayor to Councillor Bocek, anything like that will require a building permit, which in turn will require a zoning certificate. So first they'd have to go get their approval because it is a revision or a change of use to that existing room of the building. And there are building code requirements that they would have to meet, but definitely they would apply for their zoning certificate. If it met the zoning bylaw, it would be approved. Then they could apply for their building permit.
Thank you.
And just one quick second, sorry. And what happens a lot of the times, why people have to end up doing the concrete floor in that excessive amount is because they haven't built as per their approved plans. So originally they were approved through planning, through ourselves, for a crawl space. And we've gotten to site, and now they have in turn not built as per their approved plans, which is illegal unless you already have a revision. And that is basically the only way that they can conform with the building as it is.
But my point is that that basement still exists, and it already has a presence that is a view from the canoe. And so that is not, in my mind, a new view from the canoe. And what we also learned from the background report on 6 Mile Lake is that the vast majority of dwellings on 6 Mile Lake are much closer to 6 Mile Lake than we've planned for. And as such, if they were going to start proposing blasting or site alterations to change what was previously a basement that was not a walkout basement into a basement that is a walkout basement, I suspect that it would exceed the 4 cubic meters, although it may not if it's a very small space, but I would suspect it would exceed the 4 cubic meters that is exempted and would likely find its way to council for a blasting permit or some other type of permit under the shoreline alterations.
That's great. And if I can remember all that, I'll explain it to the constituent.
All right. Any other comments or questions? I have moved by Councillor Cooper, second by Councillor Graziano. Be it resolved that council approves township-led zoning bylaw amendment application number Z2601 to add a new definition of gross floor area applicable only to dwellings in 6 Mile Lake inland waterfront community as an amendment under section 34 of the Planning Act zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended up to and including bylaw 2025-053 housekeeping Z24-15. Having regard to provincial interest in Section 2 of the Planning Act, being consistent with the Provincial Planning Statement 2024 and conforming to the policies of the Muskoka Official Plan and Georgian Bay Official Plan, and that Council approves and authorizes the Mayor to enact Bylaw 2026-32, which is 6 Mile Lake GFA definition, to implement its approval of zoning bylaw amendment application Z26-01, and that Bylaw 2026-032 take effect upon the Ontario Land Tribunal decision date regarding Bylaw 2025-053, which is of course the housekeeping zoning bylaw, in the matter of OLT-25-000-597.
Your Worship, I'm just going to request a recorded vote.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. I know the same restrictions are not applied to every lake within the township.
Hence the word only.
Correct. Would it be a possibility, say, for Gloucester Pool or another lake to say, you've already done all the legwork, let's adopt it to our lake as well, too?
Anybody can make an application.
Okay, and they could use what's been previously approved as their basis for their application. Okay, great, thank you.
A recorded vote has been requested.
Let the record show Counselor Graziano has requested a recorded vote. Counselor Graziano, how do you vote?
Yes.
Counselor Hazelton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Counselor Jarvis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Counselor Predko, how do you vote?
Yes.
Counselor Bocek, how do you vote?
Yes.
Counselor Cooper, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Kusier, how do you vote?
Yes.
Let the record show the motion's carried 7-0.
All right, thank you. Now, let's move to 414 High Street for the zoning bylaw amendment Z25-13. And that is, who? Ms. Wanfor, that is you, I believe. No, I've been told. It says right here. Sorry, what? What's going on? I'm sorry. Oh. Have you been overusing your computer?
Microphones, please.
Sorry, we're having technical difficulties. Just give us a second.
Thank you, and through the mayor. The subject property has an area of 448 square meters and a frontage of 10.67 meters on High Street, located next to McTier Public School. Next slide, please. A public meeting was held on March 10th to present the application to council and the public, outline the applicable planning legislation, and obtain comments. 12 letters of support and 1 letter of concern were received from members of the public. Members of council expressed support for the proposal, noting that revitalization of McTier's downtown core is a priority and that this application represents a type of development they wish to encourage. Next slide, please. The purpose and effect of the application is to rezone the subject property to amend the residential multiple type 4 exception 2 zone to include provisions to permit an accessory ice cream parlor and 1 dwelling unit, having a total of 3 standard parking spaces and 1 accessible parking space and no loading spaces. Note that the application has been revised to include 2 tandem parking spaces for the dwelling unit and a ramp for accessibility has been added in the side yard. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located in settlement areas, which shall be the focus for growth and development. Authorities shall support general intensification and redevelopment to support this achievement of complete communities, including by planning for a range and mix of housing options and prioritizing planning and investment in the necessary infrastructure and public service facilities. Intensification refers to development at a higher density than currently exists, which may include the expansion or conversion of existing buildings. The proposed development involves the conversion of an existing detached dwelling to include a small-scale accessory commercial use in the form of an ice cream parlor within the settlement area. This represents an appropriate form of intensification and adaptive reuse of the existing building, makes efficient use of service land, and contributes to a walkable mixed-use community consistent with the objectives of the PPS. The proposal is also consistent with policy related to land uses in the vicinity of rail facilities, being more than 200 meters from the CP railway property boundary, and there are no natural heritage features or natural hazards on or abutting the lands. Next slide, please. The subject lands are designated urban center within the District of Muskoka's official plan. The district's plan aims to support area municipalities in strengthening urban centers and community areas by promoting downtowns and main streets as commercial focal points, encouraging development that aligns with anticipated growth, fostering diverse and compatible land uses in close proximity, and facilitating the efficient reuse of existing buildings for a wide range of uses. The plan indicates that a full range of uses are permitted within urban centers, provided such uses are appropriate to the infrastructure that is planned or available. The introduction of a small-scale accessory commercial use supports the district's objective of reinforcing urban centers as active, mixed-use areas that accommodate both employment and community-serving uses. The proposal makes effective use of existing buildings and infrastructure, contributes to local economic activity, and represents an appropriate form of low-impact intensification that is consistent with the intent and direction of the District of Muskoka official plan. Next slide. The subject lands are designated residential within the urban center of MacTier and the Phase 1 servicing area, where the official plan envisions MacTier as a sustainable business and service center that reflects its water-oriented and railway heritage. The planning framework promotes environmentally responsible economic development, efficient use of services, and compact urban growth that complements community character and leverages rail and highway access. Residential lands in urban centers are intended to accommodate a full range of housing types while permitting small-scale, compatible secondary uses with growth directed toward infill and gentle intensification. The proposed accessory ice cream parlor within the existing dwelling represents such a compatible secondary use, efficiently using existing infrastructure while maintaining the property's primary residential function. The use is comparable to a home occupation, as it is secondary to the residential use, entirely contained within the dwelling, and low impact in terms of traffic, parking, and neighborhood compatibility. Overall, the proposal aligns with the official plan and the MacTier master plan. Next slide, please. The subject lands are zoned residential multiple type 4 exception 2 under the township zoning bylaw, which permits triplex, duplex, semi-detached, and converted dwellings with a special minimum lot frontage requirement of 10 meters. The proposal is to convert the building to contain 1 dwelling unit and an accessory ice cream parlor, which meets the zoning bylaw definitions of both a restaurant and retail store. Where a building contains more than 1 use, the zoning bylaw requires compliance with the zone provisions applicable to each use. Based on the floor area of the ice cream parlor, parking standards require 3 spaces for the commercial use and 2 spaces for the dwelling, for a total of 5 parking spaces, including 1 barrier-free space. The applicant is proposing 4 parking spaces, 1 of which meets barrier-free requirements, and the site cannot physically accommodate the required loading space due to size constraints. Next slide, please. The draft bylaw amends the R4-2 zone to permit one dwelling unit with one attached accessory commercial use within the existing building, limited to a restaurant or retail store with a maximum gross floor area of 45 square meters. The amendment retains the minimum lot frontage requirement of 10 meters currently applicable to the zone. It also establishes site-specific setbacks reflecting the existing interior side yards and permits a barrier-free access ramp to encroach into the south side yard. The bylaw sets parking requirements at 2 spaces for the dwelling unit and 2 spaces for the accessory commercial use, including 1 barrier-free space, and confirms that no loading space is required. A site-specific provision is included to permit ingress and egress to the parking area to exceed the standard maximum perpendicular width. Next slide, please. Under the site plan control bylaw, the proposed development is required to enter into a site plan agreement with the township as it constitutes development under Section 41 of the Planning Act. The District of Muskoka initially requested a holding provision to address access and traffic matters. Subsequent confirmation from the district indicates that the proposed access is acceptable, subject to minor modifications and standard permitting. As a result, staff are not recommending a holding provision, as doing so would require a future return to council and would not align with the township's goal of streamlining planning approvals. Planning staff have conducted a detailed analysis of applicable planning legislation contained within the associated report and are recommending approval of the application, including the adoption of a zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions or comments? Councilor Bocek, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. This has all been in front of my eyes for some time now. Councillor Pretko and I, as well as some community leaders, did a site visit as well as to other area buildings owned by the township. But the parking issue is very minor. And not only that, there's so much parking immediately across. You have the whole arena parking, which is probably 50 or 60 cars, which isn't used that much. There's quite a bit of parking on the street because the District of Muskoka has put horizontal lines for parking on the opposite side of the street directly in front of this development. And I'll go back to this is twice today I've done this. I'll go back to a statement from Councillor Cooper from some time ago that said development should only be where development belongs. And I think you'll remember that. This is not really development. This is not a change of use. This property was used for a hairdresser. I forget all the other businesses were in there, but the couple that own it are here. There was a number of commercial businesses operating out of this residential unit. They're simply trying to get the zoning changed to make everything legal so that there can be ice cream served this summer on High Street. And it's all a part of the Refresh Act here. This is like the kickoff, the start, and I think it's a great idea, and I 100% support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm delighted my fellow councillor has seen the light. But all teasing aside, I just wanted to find out from Shania, on your 8th page, you refer to the words are retail store use not permitted. On page 9, it says retail allowed. So I'm confused. Maybe I misread it, but on page 8, there was a line that said retail store use not permitted. Can you explain that? I think it was page 8. It was a page before or 2 before the one where it says retail's allowed. So it may just be a typo or something like that, but wondered if you could clarify that, because it's got 2 different sort of understandings of what's trying to happen here.
Through the mayor, could you just provide the header of the section?
I don't have it in front of me. I'm looking at, I have my laptop, that's about it, and all your lovely faces, but it was what we just looked at, the presentation that we just had.
Through the mayor, perhaps I should clarify that a retail store currently isn't permitted there, And that's what we're trying to do, is allow for the retail store and restaurant components to be permitted there through the ice cream parlor use.
Okay, so one is current and the other is the future assessment of this area, correct?
Most likely, yes.
I'm just trying to understand. It threw me off, so I wanted to understand. I'm fine with this. I just didn't understand the verbiage. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Graziano and Predko seem to have reversed roles here. Because I thought I had Councillor Graziano before Councillor Predko, but anyway, let's go with Councillor Predko.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yeah, if Councillor Graziano wants to go first, his hand was up first. I don't have anything profound to add, but I'll let him speak if he would like to.
Graziano?
Sure, I'll take point here. Thank you. So I have a couple questions to staff, if I may, just to better understand this. With regards to the application, are we under any provincial mandated timeline to approve this? I know in certain applications or certain contexts, we have a very fine timeline. Does that apply for commercial applications, or it does? And what's that timeline look like, out of curiosity, from the date of application? Okay, so it's 3 months?
I'll speak to the microphone. Yeah,
Okay.
so under the Planning Act, 90 days from an application being deemed a complete application.
Okay, and when was that, when has it been deemed complete, out of curiosity? Yeah, no worries.
Through the mayor, it was deemed complete January 20th.
Okay, so we're cutting it close. We're on the outer edge of being within that time frame. I'm gonna provide a comment, and then I'm gonna ask a few additional questions, if I may. I very much support MacTier and the microeconomy, specifically the commercial side of things. I think that it's great to see interest from a commercial perspective in developing MacTier, and I want to see it thrive. I think the community would very much see a benefit here. The question that I have for our CBO is this has been deemed as a potential restaurant. From what I heard, it being classified as commercial/restaurant. Would they be required to comply with all the restaurant requirements, such as bathrooms and all that stuff?
Through the mayor, yes, and they've been, well, their consultant was made well aware at the beginning of this process that there are going to be Ontario Building Code requirements and to hire a qualified designer. So they knew ahead of time what the costs involved would be.
Okay, so it's not just converting an existing home into a deck with.
But there are building code requirements to meet
and the
that.
applicants are prepared to do that. That's great. So wonderful. That concludes my questions. The question around the timeline was more so as to whether or not this should be considered by the future of our MAC as well, given that that's the mandate of the committee. But at the same time, I don't want to hinder your ability as the summer months are coming. And hopefully with the will of council, if it passes, you guys can endeavor to do what you need to do. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Predko.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, I just wanted to reiterate that I think it's a great opportunity for High Street in MacTier to have more commercial activity that will help make it a more vibrant community. There's been a lot of positive chatter in the community about the ice cream shop coming in, and I think it's also complemented by other businesses that are becoming more active in the town. And as we've talked about before, the zoning along High Street is a mixture of commercial and residential, and I don't think it's very standardized. And I believe Director Whitlib has said in the past that there are things that can be done to streamline some of this in the future. I realize High Street is a district road, so we will always have some requirements from district. But if we're able to streamline these things so we can get businesses operating as quickly as possible when they are coming forward, that would help the long-term vibrancy of that community, and whatever we can do to minimize the red tape and costs, it would be phenomenally helpful to these communities. So I'm very pleased we're at this stage, and I'm happy to support this, and hopefully we can get ice cream scooped by the summer. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And I'll just add to the chorus that I think it's wonderful that this got this far. We got the traffic study challenge behind us. I'm quite pleased to see that it was a brief as opposed to a full study. So I think that is good. And I see Councilor Graziano wants to add a word in.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna be silly here. I'm wondering if the municipality can get some branded ice cream available and sold in MacTier for the next summer. Thank you.
Don't know what to say after that, other than
you don't get a body like this.
moved by Councilor Predko, seconded by Councilor Jarvis. Be it resolved that council approves zoning bylaw amendment application Z25-13 and that council enacts bylaw 2026-033, being a zoning bylaw amendment Z25-13, to further amend zoning bylaw 2014-75 for the lands legally described as Part 3 on Plan 35R-6233, part of Lot 14 on Plan M-112, part of Lot 143 on Plan M74, formerly Freeman, now in the Township of Georgian Bay, District Municipality of Muskoka, and municipally known as 414 High Street, to amend the provisions of the Residential Multiple Type 4 Exception 2 or RM4-2 zone to permit commercial use accessory to a dwelling unit, and that bylaw 2026-033 take effect upon the Ontario Land Tribunal decision date regarding bylaw 2025-053 for the housekeeping zoning bylaw in the matter of OLT-25-000-597. All those in favor? All right, and that is carried. Looking forward to some ice cream. It's going to get warmer. I'm sure it is. And our final staff report in this section is official plan file 025-05 and zoning bylaw amendment file Z22-14 for 2416 Island 404, Cecchetto. And that's over to our planning department. How's that, Ms. McKay?
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. The subject site is located at 2416 Island 404, also known as Quarry Island. The lands are located on an island with water access only, and it does have a total lot area of approximately 2,801.9 square meters or 0.28 hectares, measured above the Georgian Bay high water mark of 177.4 CGD, and a lot frontage of approximately 40.5 meters measured from the high water mark of 177.4 CGD. The topography of the lot consists of a sloping terrain that gradually increases from the shoreline. The property appears to be heavily covered with mature trees and a native vegetation. Surrounding land uses include residential dwellings and vacant residential parcels on Quarry Island. A public meeting was held on March the 10th, 2026, with members of council identifying concerns relating to potential ice damage and wave uprush, as well as the capacity of the existing septic system, which cannot support further human habitation. The purpose of the official plan amendment is to establish a site-specific policy to permit a sleeping cabin within the 20-meter front yard setback. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to add a site-specific exception to the shoreline residential zone, or SRI-1 zone, to permit a sleeping cabin on a property comprised of 0.28 hectares and a minimum setback to the high water mark of 13.3 meters, and to recognize the interior side yard setback, maximum building height, and maximum width of the existing dryland boathouse, and to permit a maximum shoreline activity area of 29% of the natural state shoreline area and a maximum width of 28% of the shoreline length at any point within 15 meters of the high water mark. The sleeping cabin, subject to the official plan amendment request, has been on the property for a minimum of 15 years and, as stated previously, is above the statutory high water mark. The township official plan does not permit a sleeping cabin in the front yard, and therefore an amendment is required. The sleeping cabin is located 13.3 meters from the high water mark, behind a large stand of trees providing screening from the water. All other provisions of the zoning bylaw have been met. The existing dryland boathouse was constructed on pillars, providing additional height, with the top of the deck being at 180.05 CDG, whereas the established high water mark, something happened here. There we go. Whereas the established high water mark for Georgian Bay is 177.4. The zoning provisions to be addressed in the zoning bylaw amendment relating to the dryland boathouse is to recognize the interior side yard setback, maximum building height, and maximum width of the existing dryland boathouse. The lands within 15 meters of the high water mark on all lots in any shoreline residential or shoreline residential island zone shall be maintained in a natural state, with this area being considered the natural state shoreline. Within this area, existing native vegetation shall be preserved. Invasive species and trees which present safety hazards, however, may be removed. A shoreline activity area shall be permitted within the natural state shoreline area to provide access to the shoreline and locations for land-based shoreline accessory structures. The shoreline activity area is calculated as a percentage of the natural state shoreline area. In relation to this particular property, the shoreline activity area shall be a maximum of 25% of the natural state shoreline area and shall have a maximum width of 25% of the shoreline length at any point within 15 meters of the high water mark. As the shoreline activity area is greater than the maximum permitted in both area and width, this will be included in the zoning bylaw amendment. Some photos of the property, which I previously showed at the public meeting, showing the boathouse and the sleeping cabin and the view from the water. Oh, sorry, it's taking its time, isn't it? Oh, I missed a slide. I apologize. There's something going on here. There we go. At the public meeting, there was concerns raised by council in regards to, oh my goodness, I don't know what's going on with technology today. The cabin is set back 13.3 meters from the average high water mark of 177.4. And I know the concern was raised by members of council in regards to the potential for ice damage and wave uprush. The actual sleeping cabin is behind the dryland boathouse, and the dryland boathouse has been replaced and removed and reconstructed. And at the time it was done without the benefit of a building permit. However, when it was rebuilt to the benefit of the actual structure, it was built on piers and is now at 180.1 of the of CGG. The existing septic system has been reviewed and an evaluation report was prepared by Flow Drawings and Design Inc. In regards to the on-site sewage system. It has been confirmed that the existing septic system has a 5,500 liter tank and a 300 square foot filter bed, which can support 2,150 square feet of living space, 4 bedrooms, and 20 fixture units. The existing system will support the existing 1,158 square foot 3-bedroom cottage with 10 fixture units and the 115 square foot sleeping cabin with no fixture units. So staff have prepared a detailed analysis in regards to this application, in regards to provincial legislation, and also the District of Muskoka official plan and the Township of Georgian Bay official plan, as well as the zoning bylaw. And staff are in favor and recommending approval of the applications as presented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions or comments? Going once. Go, Councillor Bochek.
Oh, my mic's already on. Thank you, and through you, Mayor, not a question, but a comment. In the past, council has asked on a lot of the drawings and the maps for you to articulate the body of water that this is on. Just because new council is going to be coming in, they might not know the topography of our land. This could be on 6 Mile Lake, Go Home Lake, could be on anything. So if you could just populate it with the name of the body of water, that would be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Pacific Ocean.
Pacific Ocean.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other hands, so I'm going to dare read the motion, which is moved by Councillor Graziano, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Be it resolved, the Council enacts bylaw 2026-034, being a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 28025-05, to further amend the Township of Georgian Bay's official plan by adding site-specific policy F.3.3.6.2.6 to permit a sleeping cabin in the required shoreline or front yard setback as defined by the Township zoning bylaw on the lands municipally known as 2416 Island 404, and that bylaw 2026-034 adopting official plan amendment number 28 be forwarded to the District of Muskoka for approval, and that Council enact bylaw 2026-035 being a zoning bylaw amendment Z24-14 to further amend zoning bylaw 2014-75 by rezoning the property municipally known as 2416 Island 404 from the shoreline residential island type 1 SRI 1 zone to a shoreline residential island 1 exception, namely SRI 1-65 zone, and that the bylaw 2026-035 take effect upon the Ontario Land Tribunal decision date regarding bylaw 2025-053 in the matter of OLT-25-000597, and that the owner apply for and obtain site plan approval from the Township of Georgian Bay, including, if required, the execution and registration of a site plan agreement against the title of the lands. All those in favor? And that is carried. And that leaves us with a staff report on Bill 98. And I believe Director Whitlib, you're going to present your take on Bill 98.
Thank you all, and I'll be brief, Mr. Mayor and Council. Bill 98, and there's a number of related regulatory changes and concurrent changes that were posted by the province that all ultimately fall under the umbrella of Bill 98, and they come into effect, or the consultation periods rather on those changes ended or will end at different times. So some of the elements that the staff report discusses, the consultation period has already ended, although have not been enacted into law. There were some elements where the consultation periods ended on April 29th and April 30th, and more substantively, most of them wrap up on May 14th. So from staff standpoint, there's still an opportunity through this staff report and any other comments council may have to forward comments to the province, certainly on those elements that are still within the consultation period. And we remain hopeful that perhaps some of the elements that under which consultation has been completed or that are moving their way through the legislative process, the province may still have some second thought based on feedback it's getting from municipalities and other organizations. For example, I understand the Ontario Professional Planners Institute will be making a fulsome submission to the province as well. So long story short, there's a whole host of changes. I'll quickly go through the list, and then I'll focus on what I think the key points should be for the Township of Georgian Bay in terms of recommendations or comments we might want to make to the province. The province wishes to establish minimum lot sizes, for example, in urban areas, serviced urban areas, and that's a scenario where municipalities may not be able to establish their own larger minimum lot sizes. So it's a method to increase density. The province is did consult on enhanced development standards, matters such as low impact design, etc. There's methodology for the provincial planning statement, which we anticipated will be updated again. Most significantly, and is one of the focuses of my staff report, is the province wants to standardize official plans. Essentially a one-size-fits-all template for what the table of contents and official plan should contain. And our concern in that respect is that we feel as a planning department that standardization and that format that the province has put forth may be applicable to some of the more urban-centered municipalities in the Golden Horseshoe. It's certainly not conducive to accommodating the type of official plan that Georgian Bay currently has, with its different community plans and different community standards that so many people in Georgian Bay over so many years worked so hard to achieve. And trying to fit our current official plan format into what the province wants us to do is, I like to use the analogy of a square peg in a round hole, but it might even be a harder peg to fit into that hole. So we're hoping the province gives consideration to backtracking on that somewhat, insofar as it relates to more rural municipalities or municipalities like those in our part of Ontario, where there's a tremendous richness of natural resources that require a special level of protection and that are not under the same development pressures or growth pressures as some other areas of the province. The province wants to standardize parkland requirements. Historically, the municipality has had the ability to be selective in what it accepts as parkland. We not necessarily have to accept marshy lands or steep slopes as parkland if we wanted to establish pickleball courts. The province would put more power in the hands of the development community in terms of what qualifies as the 5% parkland dedication. The province wants to prohibit, I talked about consultation on enhanced development standards. This council has expressed an interest in green building initiatives. The province wants to prohibit making certain green building elements, in general, prohibit making them mandatory requirements through policy. Another element that I focus on in the staff report is what is required for the purposes of a complete application. More specifically, what are the various supporting studies that might be required? The province is proposing 2 lists of studies, sort of, I'll call them core studies. And those are your typical ones that everyone understands: a planning justification report, a functional servicing report from an engineer, a transportation study, maybe that sort of thing. But when we get into these highly specialized studies, like in Georgian Bay, we talk about site evaluation reports, a very specific type of study in our official plan, or boating impact assessments. It's not clear whether the province will allow us to do that moving forward for the purposes of a complete application. Another element of concern to us is the province wants to reform site plan control and limit a municipality's ability to include what are referred to as sustainable design elements. We rely on site plan control a great deal, particularly when it comes to areas of natural state shoreline and establishing those buffers that our official plan works so hard to achieve. So we're concerned about our ability to do that to be fettered by the province moving forward. And I think that covers most of the highlights. So what staff are recommending is the 3 elements that I'm recommending council focus on in its comments back to the province are our concerns with the standardization of official plans, our concerns with the potential to limit our ability to fully utilize site plan control to achieve our environmental objectives, and thirdly, the streamlining of complete application requirements, and specifically our concern that it may fetter our ability to request some of these important, albeit unique studies that are very specific to our environmental considerations here in Georgian Bay. So I'll leave it at that. Try and answer any questions that council may have and seek council's direction as per the motion, or anything council wants to change or add in terms of comments back to the province.
Well, thank you very much. Councillor Jarvis, would you mind chairing for a few minutes? Chairing the meeting for a few minutes? I got to step out for a couple minutes.
Thank you. This has got to be awake, right?
Yes, that's helpful.
I guess we're going to open this up to the to council for any comments. Councillor Cooper, I see he's got his hand up. Councillor Cooper, your mic's off.
Sorry, my mic was off, but I just wanted to say thank you, Councillor Chair Jarvis, recognizing me. This is remarkable. But just wanted to comment. I guess, Derek, I really do think we need to give the province some feedback, obviously, and you're recommending that. Fully behind you on that. I don't know that you've missed it all that much, other than I think we need to try and get the message across to the province that all sizes don't fit, whatever that expression is, don't fit. In this particular case, Central and Northern Ontario are quite different from Markham and Brampton and Bramalea or whatever. And I'm stating the obvious here, but I think it does seem to the province seems to miss that point, that there's quite a distinct difference. And I think it would be quite important to reinforce that and maybe try and work with other municipalities that have some uniqueness that are in Central and Northern Ontario, and see if we can sort of all be singing from the same hymn book. Is there something, for example, coming from the District of Muskoka that are they taking up the charge in any particular way or not?
Through the chair, there is a district staff report attached to this planning department's report, and it was considered late last month by the district. I'm not sure where it went from there. Went to I believe the CAPS committee at district, whether that was the district forwarded on to the province. But I do know that the other area municipalities in the district will also be providing their comments to the province, because we as area municipal planners did collaborate and assist the district in the preparation of that report that you see that's attached to my report.
So just to follow up, if I may.
Sure.
Your chairness. I wanted to just say that there might be some merit in potentially sending in our comments individually, but also collectively. I know it's sort of repetitive, but on the other hand, it sort of shows singing from the same hymn book for several areas. And I think, there's no question that there is a distinction between Central and Northern Ontario. And a lot of the things that are driving the province are related to finding housing and establishing new housing. I get all that, but a lot of those pressures are not coming our way because we're far enough north, thankfully, that we can say, yeah, but it doesn't really apply to us, or only to a certain extent, maybe just in our urban areas, and leave it at that, but also leave us alone elsewhere. So anyway, just a couple of thoughts about how to get the message across. If there's maybe I'm missing, there may be some other ways of, maybe we need to get our communities to write in as well, some of our cottage associations and so forth, because it's going to impact our constituents. So just another little suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graziano, followed by Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Jarvis. Councillor Cooper had essentially eloquently stole my thunder. I was going to ask Derek whether, based on the report today and the motion, I think that we've pretty much covered it. I wouldn't preclude anything or seek any amendments, but I would actually hopefully seek some kind of additional add-ons. I'm not sure whether the current provincial government is aware of our environmental sensitivities and have really considered how environmentally sensitive we are and how much we want to preserve our archipelagos and our inland lakes and on all the beauty that surrounds us here. I can understand that the province is seeking to increase housing supply, and perhaps at a time that doesn't make sense, given that immigration has decreased drastically based on recent studies, but here nor there. And per Councillor Cooper's comments, I'm wondering if we can collectively come together with other environmentally sensitive areas, such as Muskoka Lakes, any of our surrounding municipalities that have water bodies, including Kawartha Lakes and everywhere else, to see if we can put a unified comment forward saying, while we respect and feel that these could be applicable in urban areas, hands off on our natural resources and sensitive lands. So with that said, we'll defer to you. I don't know if this is a hill you wish to climb from a planning standpoint, or whether the subtle kind of this is what we agree with and this is what we don't is preferred. But I really do hope that we can send a message to the provincial government saying, yeah, it's not applicable to us. Thanks.
Through the chair, if I may, to Councillor Graziano, wholeheartedly agree. And I think under a more normal consultation framework where the zone hasn't been flooded with multiple simultaneous changes, it would have been possible to collaborate and get our comments in along with the other municipalities in time for some of these dates that have already lapsed and the May 14th comment date that's coming up. But I know speaking with my colleagues in the area municipalities, they're all in the same place we are right now. We'll be sending in, as individual municipalities, our own individual comments. However, the themes will be extremely common. So we've seen it before where, notwithstanding regulatory changes in place, the province has sometimes taken a step back with some things. They did that once with site plan control, for example, as it affects shoreline areas. So we remain optimistic that maybe in response to feedback that the province receives, we will see some movement on some of these items that are important to municipalities like ours.
Chair, additional follow-up, if I may?
By all means.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Derek. I can appreciate that. I wonder whether it'd be prudent if we, as a municipality, requested our MPP to come in and speak to this as well. Given his former portfolio, as well as, the fact that he's our representative to the province, that we have a frank discussion with him saying, listen, you see the beauty around us. This is not applicable. Hands off. Thank you.
It's certainly from staff standpoint, that's outside of our realm, but we would not disagree. And just as a side note, just to give you an idea of the expediency with which the province seems to be moving, while some of these items are still in their own consultation periods, the legislation itself, Bill 98, continues to move through the legislature. So whether there'll be last minute changes prior to third reading, we don't know, but it's really a ball that's rolling fast.
Councillor Hazelton.
This is scary stuff. It's kind of like, why are we here? We've had conversations like this in the past of, where why do we have a municipality? Why do we have a council? Because somebody else is taking away all of the decision making that relates to the community. So I'm finding it very, very concerning. You've already heard kind of other feedback about collaborating perhaps with neighboring municipalities. One of the things that used to be a strong push was the Georgian Bay Association was able to essentially gather together communities of specific interest. I mean, we're part of Muskoka, but in fairness, we don't have a lot in common with Muskoka. And then maybe some of these policies are similar, but when you look at the geography that we're dealing with going up and down the shoreline is more in sync with each of our organization, our geographies, etc. So I'm guessing there isn't time left to collaborate with our neighboring communities up and down the shore, but I think it would be valuable to lob a call into the executive director of the GBA and see what kind of support they can get from up and down the shoreline, because I think we need all the help we can get, and I would hope that we don't just think that Muskoka is our focal point, because in so many ways it's not. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Graziano, your hand's still up. Are you still?
I'm just a little perplexed, if I may, Chair. I wasn't aware that Councillor Stephen Jarvis had white hair, so.
So, okay, nothing more. I see Councillor Mayor Jarvis Kutsier wants to say something.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a little bit unusual here, and I appreciate you taking the chair for me. I had to step out for a couple of minutes. Sorry about that. And I don't know what all that I missed, but I think what's extremely important with this is, yes, it's great concern that the province is moving forward on this. I understand from district staff that our MPP, Graydon Smith, has already put forward a motion, I'm not sure that's the right word, whatever he does, to try to say, wait a minute, we should do the same thing that was happened, I think it was Bill 23, when they decided that anything within, was it 150 meters of a shoreline would be exempt and have special regulations. And my understanding is that that's being contemplated with this as well. But I think that it's extremely important that we respond and copy whoever we want to copy, who might also support it. I don't doubt that our neighbors to the north, as well as our neighbors to the east, and probably quite a few others in the province, are going to be responding to this, because yeah, they're bulldozing through, and maybe that's a very unfortunate but nonetheless applicable analogy. They're bulldozing through this regulations in spite of so much valuable lands that we have in this province that are not anywhere near services, that are not suitable for bulldozing, and you know, spreading the blanket so wide just is so short-sighted and unfortunate. And I really appreciate all the work that not only our planners, but the planners of our neighbors and many others who are working so hard at saying, hey, wait a minute, you can achieve your goals with a much smaller, with a front end loader versus a bulldozer. I've pushed that too far, didn't I?
Well, I think that's about right. I'm too very concerned. I will leave you to read the resolution, Mr. Mayor, but I'm wondering if it is comprehensive enough as it currently stands, based on what we've just discussed, and I'll leave that to you.
Councillor Hazelton.
Yeah, in light of all the comments of expanded visibility, I was going to suggest that the resolution might be amended to include a distribution list, and of course, you know, Great Smith should be on that distribution list. I think the GBA should be on that distribution list, and somebody that may not be a household name in everybody's thoughts, but MPP Saunderson from Simcoe Grey, who has a cottage in Cognisheen and has been extremely helpful on a matter that we had in Honey Harbor. Very, very supportive. And so expanding the distribution to people who may have interests in and support for our community, I think would be valuable. So if I could add MPP Saunderson's name.
And I think also we should add the Minister of the Environment, MECP, who's also familiar with the area and boats in the area and very much aware of the importance of Georgian Bay. Georgian Bay writ large, not small. I don't know if we have to add that to the motion, or if we can just use that as direction when we prepare this correspondence.
Through the mayor, so I've added to CC MPP Graydon Smith, Georgian Bay Association, the MPP from Simcoe Grey, and the MECP.
And Simcoe Grey is Brian Saunderson.
Okay. Councillor Cooper.
And I just mentioned this before, but I do think our community groups as well. So, Go Home Bay, Cognisheen, Wabataisi, Honey Harbor, etc. I think there's within those communities, if we hear from them, there are others that have significant influence. If we want to sort of put the heat on, I think it'd be wise to make sure we get that communique out to community groups like that. Thank you.
And various neighbors. We can expand the list as we review it. But I think it's important that we all are singing, that the chorus becomes louder and louder. Moved by Councillor Bocek, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved that District of Muskoka Report CPS-5-2026-5 regarding Bill 98 and additional legislative reforms be received for information. And the Township of Georgian Bay requests that the Province of Ontario, 1, collaborate with the District of Muskoka and its area municipalities to develop additional policy sets and/or relating schedules for the contents of local and upper-tier official plans that are better suited to regulate development in Muskoka's vast rural areas comprised of largely contiguous forests, over 650 lakes, the Georgian Bay biosphere, and diverse ecosystems in this unique part of Ontario. 2, collaborate with the District of Muskoka and area municipalities to clarify that limitations to site plan control only apply to urban areas and that limitations on sustainable design requirements do not apply to lands adjacent to natural features such as lakes, rivers, and wetlands. And 3, revise, clarify the standardized list of contingent studies to a complete application to include landscape visual impact study, site evaluation report, marina impact study, and boat impact assessment. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Hazelton, seconded by Councillor Predko. Be it resolved that the Planning Council adopt Bylaw 2026-036 to confirm the proceedings of the May 5th, 2026 Council meeting. All those in favor? And that is carried. And moved by Councillor Jarvis, second by Councillor Bocek. Be it resolved, the Planning Council does now adjourn at 12:15 p.m. until June 2nd, 2026 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair. All those in favor? And that is carried. And may I suggest cow at 1 o'clock? It might even be on the agenda for 1 o'clock. Okay, let's do it. Thank you.